Hi guys, this is Slater. Slater! Psst, psst. What do you see out there? What is it? And he's ready to hear all about Lord of the Flies, Chapter 4. So today we're going to be discussing Chapter 4, things I hope you picked up on in Chapter 4. And then we are going to give you some things to look out for in Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is a really pivotal chapter, so there's a lot of cool things. All right, he's ready. He's done looking out the window. He's ready to discuss. All right, so chapter 4. Where were we? Painted faces and long hair. So the first thing you were supposed to do is describe daily life on the island. We said to look out for that. So something you should have noticed is the description. So sometimes the island is described in a way that is like kind and lovely, like the beautiful water. And then other times it is described as very scary. So you should be noticing by now that morning is pleasant and the kids are playing and enjoying life on the island. That's when we have the good descriptions. And then noon becomes really, really hot and the sun is like almost like another character that's beating down on them. So that's when it starts to get a little bit more dangerous. That's when you realize, wow, this is like life-threatening. And then nighttime is darkness. It's menacing. It's frightening. The boys retreat into their shelters to sleep, but a lot of them are having nightmares and sleeping restlessly. So dark, night, the unknown, right? So that's what's going on there. Civilization versus savagery. So some of the things that you might have noticed, hopefully. There are two events that are kind of leading down a slippery slope. We have Maurice throwing sand in the eye of the little one, and he kind of talks about how grown-ups would have chastised him for that, and he still feels bad about it, even though there aren't any grown-ups there to chastise him. And Roger, when he's throwing stones around Henry, but not at him, it's like they still got this idea of consciousness and the rules of what is right and wrong that have been determined by society. So they still have that kind of weighing on them, but things are starting to get different. Okay. Why does Jack use face paint? So I have a picture here of Jack with his face paint, thinking about what this could symbolize. And well, he says he's using it for the hunt, right? For the pigs, so they don't see him. But what we notice is that it becomes like a mask for him to hide behind. It becomes something that will allow him to leave his civilization and civilized parts behind and become more savage. He becomes like a savage beast hunter, right? So it's only when he has the face painted that he is liberated from shame, and he can go and kill that pig aggressively and without remorse. Okay, so the question is, what could this symbolize? All right, so when we're thinking about that face paint, we're thinking about the mask, we're thinking about our author, right, who lived through World War II and saw a lot of terrible things being done, like Nazis and the killing of all those Jews and war-torn states and people being cruel to each other, right? So think about how that plays a part in the symbolism that he wrote into the novel. How do people act differently when they are in uniform or behind masks? So if you think about that, sometimes it allows them to put aside themselves, and it's like they are character on stage, right? That's not really them performing these terrible deeds. It like masks you from that, right? It lets you separate yourself kind of from the deed. So you want to think about that. Think about how this all could be, like we said in the very beginning, that the story is like you could look at it two ways as an allegory. So an allegory means we've got the story, we've got the characters, we've got Jack who's doing the face paint and killing the pig. But on the other side, we have the idea of war and what it symbolizes for war. So the face paint symbolizes the uniform, the mask, the people who kill savagely because that's what they signed up for. That's what they're being told to do. All right, so back to our questions though. Ralph and Jack, they continue to have this rift. What is it? What is going on? So Ralph becomes really, really angry with Jack because a boat appears on the horizon, which could be their salvation, right? Because they're trying to have a fire so that people would see smoke, so that if a ship goes by, they would be able to see the smoke and come over, right? Well, here's their one moment when there's finally a ship, a boat out on the horizon. And they look up at the signal and it's gone because the boys went hunting instead. So Ralph is very angry with Jack for allowing this to happen and for putting hunting before being rescued. So he's really, really angry. Do you think his anger is justified or not? So think about that. Jack's treatment of Piggy. How does Ralph react? So Jack continues to be really nasty to Piggy. A lot of cruelty goes on here. There's this tension that's been brewing for a while. But this incident seems to have changed things drastically. There's even a quote in there. Not even Ralph knew how a link between him and Jack had been snapped and fastened elsewhere. And now Ralph seems to be fastened to Piggy instead of Jack. So if we see this change going on, right? So I think the straw that broke the camel's back was when Jack breaks Piggy's glasses. Okay, so if we think about symbolism here, if Piggy's glasses are a symbolic of the links to civilized thought and scientific knowledge, what is significant about the breaking of them? Think about that. If Piggy's glasses are symbolic of links to civilized thought and scientific knowledge, what is significant about the breaking of them? Who's the one who breaks them? Jack, right? So if we're looking at this idea of civilization versus savagery, and we've got Team Ralph and Team Jack, Jack is more savage. He's all about hunting. He says we need to fill our bellies. That's what we need to care about the most. Ralph is more about civilized society. We need to get rescued. We need to have our fire going so that if anybody goes by, they can come rescue us. We can eat berries and we can find stuff to eat. You can have your hunting, Jack, but we need to keep a team together to keep that fire going. Ralph is the one that wants to call together to have everyone come together and have meetings and take care of things that he's seeing that's going wrong. So we see this, and we see Ralph, who was making fun of Piggy too in the beginning and not being so kind to him. When Jack breaks Piggy's glasses, that's like, it's too much. So everyone is starting to see that Jack is savage, and he's becoming more savage as the story's going on. So that's just one example there of how savage he's becoming, how he's losing this hold and this grip on civilization, and he's becoming more savage. The question now is, who's going to follow along with him? Is it going to be a divided camp? Are they going to all succumb to savagery? Who is going to suffer in here? And I guess if you think about that, Piggy's glasses being broken, then they're going to be breaking with their idea of scientific knowledge and civilized thought. Then are things going to get better? Or are they going to get worse? Okay, we'll have to read on to find out. All right, so chapter 5 is called Beast from Water. Some things to think about in this section. Ralph has to step up and be a big leader. So you're looking at how has Ralph changed since being on the island in the beginning. Think about what his character was like in the very beginning versus by the end of this chapter, how has his character changed? What are Ralph's main complaints? So he brings up some complaints in a meeting. So look for those. Those you should be able to like number them out. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll also see this continued power struggle between Ralph and Jack, and I want you to pay close attention to how both of them treat the little uns. How does Ralph treat the little uns and their concerns versus how Jack treats them? Then there comes one of the little uns brings up the beast again, and they start trying to figure out where the beast could be hiding or where it's from. There's lots of theories, and one of them says that the beast has come from the sea. Why is that particularly frightening? What does the sea symbolize? Why is keeping the fire burning so important to Ralph? What does that symbolize? And why is Piggy frightened of Jack by the end of the chapter? So those are the things for you to look out for. On It's Learning, I put a link to this, a PDF of this while reading chapter 5. And this is just a place for you to record some quotations for each of the following points. Some may be just a few words, other a few sentences. There may be more than one for each point. So some points to consider. Ralph has changed since he arrived on the island. The society on the island is breaking down. So where do we see that? The boys are experiencing real fear. Jack is not very understanding when it comes to little uns. Jack leads the boys away from Ralph. The rules are very important to Ralph. The boys are beginning to act like animals. The fire is important to Ralph. Piggy is afraid of Jack. So those are the points, and you're looking for quotes that support those points. You're either completing this, or you are going with the packet work that was assigned. So we've kind of been going over that each day. Your packet work, date and pages read, summary of major events, personal reaction. You should be doing that regardless. Then that last point, responding to during reading questions, choose one or two to respond to. A lot of those questions have many questions within the one question. So that's where I'm bringing in the idea of doing something like this instead. So that is on you if you want to do this. If you don't want to print this out, you just want to look at it online and like copy it down, like the main points in your day book, that's fine too. Either way, you just want to make sure you're keeping up with this reading. Okay, so that's it for chapter 5. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. And as soon as I hear anything more about what's going on for next week, the superintendent sent out some information to the teachers that basically just said there is no more news until next week. So they're continuing to work on a plan to figure out. I really don't think we'll be back at the end of next week. I think this will go in later. So I think the superintendent and the higher ups are trying to do something that's fair for everybody, for people that don't have access to the internet, for people that don't have access to devices at all. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're coming up with a plan. So just stay tuned. And, you know, some things are being decided by the governor. Some things are being decided by the president. So just keep your eye out on those things and keep going, guys. We're going to get through this. And one day you'll be able to tell your children all about how you made it through this crazy time of coronavirus. You are living history right now. So it's a good idea to maybe write down a little reflection, like a journal. This could be a firsthand document about what it was like to go through these times. So anyway, guys, if you need anything, you know where to find me. You can send me an email, you can send me a message on Remind, or you can comment on this video. Have a good weekend, everybody. Stay safe.